On November 20th, 2018, it was announced by Green Party leader Andrew Weaver and Premier John Horgan that new legislation bill will be introduced in the spring asking for a ban on diesel and gas cars in 2040, meaning only electric cars will be sold. But is this legislation achievable, or does this put too much pressure on the industry? We asked that question to Dan, who is a policy director for Clean Energy Canada.
Well, in BC, we've got a significant amount of our carbon pollution that causes climate change comes from personal vehicles. And so obviously there are things we can do to make it easier for people to take public transit or to walk or to take a bike. But for some people, they're always going to have to still have a car to be able to get to work or get their kids to hockey practice. And so we need to make sure that in those instances, people have access to the cleanest cars possible.
In a report done by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, it finds that 2/5 of the province's greenhouse gas comes from transportation. And Andrew Weaver has said that 40% of household emissions in BC comes from transportation. But are car manufacturers ready for this change in BC?
Absolutely. And we see some differences between North American car companies versus European or Japanese and Chinese car companies. I would say that in North America, our big car manufacturers have lagged somewhat. They don't have as many electric vehicles that they're currently offering to consumers, but they're well aware that they need to accelerate their research and development, their development of new models, and bringing those cars to market.
In North America, car companies such as Ford and GM have taken steps to go electric. GM has announced that they will be going electric by the year 2020, while Ford has made it a priority to also go electric by 2020. They have also invested $11 billion US on this project. Now that the government and the car manufacturers have made changes, where does this leave BC car dealerships? We asked that question to Blair Quill, the CEO of the New Car Dealership Association of BC.
The devil's in the details in these kinds of announcements. We're short on the details of exactly how they're going to measure it, what they're going to do in terms of any penalties, what will be involved in the whole process. We've been saying for a long time that British Columbians are already embracing these. We're at 15.4% of car sales are now electric vehicles. We lead pretty much all of North America in that, save for California. So we're sort of scratching our heads.
While Premier Horgan did not give any more details about this legislation, he did have specific measurables for this legislation. By 2025, he wants 10% of cars in lots sold as electric cars, while in 2030, he wants 30% of cars sold electric. And by 2040, he wants 100% of cars sold electric. Now, Blair points out that car manufacturers will try to meet supply for this legislation, but this leaves car dealerships in a tough situation.
Car dealers are a bit of the meat in the sandwich here between government and the manufacturers. The manufacturers will be the ones that will face the mandates and the requirements for the sale of their vehicles within the province, and the dealers will be the ones stuck in the middle trying to make it all work in the local communities in which they do business and pay taxes and employ folks.
For example, if I'm a car dealer in Prince George and my customer base is blue-collar workers who use heavy machinery and also want trucks, how is this legislation supposed to work for me? We propose this situation to Dan.
Well, I think it's important to note that the requirement for these sales targets doesn't fall on any individual dealership. It's applied to the car manufacturers. And so that recognizes that in different parts of British Columbia, electric vehicles are better or not quite as good in terms of being able to meet the needs of local drivers. And so right now we see a lot more electric vehicles being sold in the Lower Mainland and on Vancouver Island compared to in northern BC or in the interior. And so, if you're a car dealership in Prince George, you're not going to be forced to sell more zero-emission vehicles. The car manufacturer will decide to allocate more of those vehicles to the markets in British Columbia where those cars work better and where there's more market demand for it.
Now I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Is this legislation too ambitious, or do you feel that this is an attainable goal? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Please share, like, and comment.